used to, hold on, and they used to try different things at each one of these parties, as far as with the record players and stuff like that. So you had a party where a guy just scratched the record and he didn't do it on purpose, but it sounded good to him. So at the next party, he started really scratching and really mixing on the record. And that was what you would call like a break beat. You know what I mean? You hear the song, "These Are the Breaks," give it up, give it up, give it up. That's where that came from, because that started with the break beat at these parties. The parties started to get really, really popular. So they had to start to find venues, you know, places in New York to throw these parties. And hip hop really didn't come into fruition until people started really emceeing these parties. You know what I mean? The MC is the master of the ceremony. That's what MC stand for. But people didn't really do that until people started emceeing these parties. So when they started emceeing, they would throw little stuff in there, like, you know, ad libs, and it would sound good. So then people started doing more than just ad libs. They did like whole songs or poetry and stuff like that. And it didn't really have a rhythm to it. They really couldn't catch the beat, but people were still liking it. Hip hop, since its inception, hip hop has birthed dozens of subgenres, including trap, grime, you know, gangster rap, rock, even crunk. You know what I mean? Hip hop has done a lot for the music culture. You got bounce now, you got mumble rap now, you got Latin hip hop. But you have some of the most notable people that came up with these was DJ Kool Herc. Back then, DJ Kool Herc was a really well-known DJ in New York. And he used to throw these really big parties, and he used to get acts like Kool Moe Dee before they were even famous. You know, different people used to come through there and just talk on the mic. But one day, Kool Herc was like, well, you know, I want you to talk over this beat, or, you know, do something with this beat. And you had people start rapping. They started to catch a rhythm. They started to catch a build of, you know, what they wanted to do. One of the first rap songs that came out in the late 70s, you know, going into the 80s was Rapper's Delight. That's what they say was one of the first rap songs. I don't really think that was, but that's one of them. And that was the hip to the hip hoppy, it don't stop, rocking to the bang bang boogie, now up jump the boogie to the, that was that. And people, it was like, in the beginning, it was like some people didn't like it and some people did. Some people think they were starting, as early as hip hop begun, it was starting to get commercialized with that kind of rap. It wasn't really saying anything. People really didn't get into it like that. But in this session, I'm definitely gonna get into the real beginnings of hip hop, and then we'll get like into different things, like the history and the expansion of hip hop through the US and things like that. I wanted to do so y'all early things like music and stuff like that, but I'll do that the next session. This one, I'm just gonna give you a little understanding of what hip hop was. NYC DJs like DJ Kool Herc, Grand Wizard, Theodore, Grandmaster Flash, African Bambaataa, they began to experiment with different techniques, including longer percussive breaks called break beats, or simply the breaks, you know what I mean? Turntable techniques, scratching, freestyle, and improvised vocals. So definitely when you got improvised, you know, that means it's right on the spot. And you know, the vocals used to be based on Jamaican toasting. You know what I mean? They often credit as pioneers of, they often credit some Jamaican, African Bambaataa was, of course, Jamaican and African, but they will credit it with the pioneer of hip hop. In 1979, that's when the Sugar Hill Gang came, and they released what is widely considered the first hip hop record, Rapper's Delight. You know, it reached the top 40, I think, in the Billboard charts and propelled hip hop into the spotlight, making hip hop a full-fledged genre now. So that was in 1979. That's when they really started to look at hip hop in its inception stages. Hip hop really started to diversify. The diversification of hip hop was basically in the 80s. Hip hop was in full force. You started seeing really different people do different stuff with hip hop. Many different artists began new ideas to the game. To the genre, including, you know, drum kicks, especially the 808. You know, that was more complex sampling and metaphorical rap lyrics and broader collaborations with the genres came into play in the 80s. And it started to really spread. It started to spread first in the UK. Other than the US, it spread it in the UK, then Japan, and then Australia. So it started to expand in the UK. Outside the first expansion outside of the US was the UK, Japan, then Australia. That's where the notable place where it came from. Notable songs that really expanded like that was The Message by Grandmaster Flash and the Furious Five. That was what happened in the early 80s of hip hop. Now, around 84 to the late 80s, in 84, that was what they called the new school hip hop people. You know, you had a lot of different people like Run DMC, LL Cool J, the Beastie Boys, guys like that introduced what they called a new school hip hop. You know, the style emphasized on drum machines, minimalism, shorter songs, you know what I mean? Because just like gospel songs, hip hop songs used to be so long. You know what I mean? They used to be so long, they had to shorten them up so they could really grab the attention of the audience. It's radio friendly songs, you know what I mean? People weren't really cursing like that. You know what I mean? It wasn't a lot of cursing in hip hop in the early 70s. I mean, in the late 70s to the early 80s. It was really no cursing like that. If somebody said a curse word, it was like damn or something like that. But you know, the songs in the 80s, 84 and up, 84 to about 89, they were more politically, you know, more social political, you know, commentary basically. These artists shifted away from the party rhymes and funk influences of the old school hip hop, and they went into something new, calling them new school hip hop. Now we get to like the late 80s to the early 90s. That was my favorite time in hip hop. That was like the golden era. You know what I mean? The golden era. And this is just a synopsis, but I'm just going to break it down for you because the next in further classes after this, we're going to go into how to write rhymes, how to do a rhyme scheme, how to do a double entendre, how to do metaphors, how to catch the beat, how to bounce with it. And also, and getting back to the late 90s, that was the golden era. I mean, the late 80s going into the early 90s, that was the golden era. You started to get people that really knew how to switch the words. You had wordsmiths, you had Notorious Big, you had Boogie Down Productions, you had Rakim, Kool G Rap. It was like Guru. You had so many Gangstar, you know, that's Guru. But you had so many different people. Big Daddy Kane, Nas came into the scene and really revolutionized the way that rap was. Rap really didn't get super big until the 90s came. When the 90s came, man, rap really changed the world. Hip hop really changed the world. That's when they saw that you could see somebody come from nothing. Like these were real stories. Of course, it was in other genres of music, they had the same type of story. But these people at this time were really telling their story. They were really living their story and telling their story, and the truth came out in their music. Some of the most grittiest music. In the 90s, that's when they really started cursing. Like they started really cussing in the 90s and in their music and stuff like that. Because you had people like Schoolie D, Ice-T, NWA. The West Side was starting to really emerge too in the 90s, going into the 2000s. Now, if you was to go into the late 90s, going into the early 2000s, hip hop was really starting to get commercialized. It was like a major mainstream genre now. So it created many high profile artists at this time, and many artists in hip hop were starting to get paid like rock stars now. You know what I mean? Before them, they were getting paid, but going into the early 2000s, they started to really get paid like rock stars. They were getting money. They were getting, you know, what you say, white people money. You know what I mean? They was getting paid. You know, you had people like Lil Wayne, Timbaland, Nelly, Puffy, Ja Rule, DMX, Eminem. And it's like they added the Grammys, they added a new award to the Grammys going into the late 90s, going into the 2000s. They added a new award to the Grammys, which was Best Rap Album. They never had that before. That's when a lot of people knew that, you know, it was really getting really commercialized. Because I think Naughty by Nature was the first group to win Best Rap Album. And they had some good music. The Hip Hop Parades and the OPP, you know, music was really starting to jump for that genre. But does anybody have any questions right now? Know about it? Okay, got you. All right, so I can move on. Now, in the 2000s, hip hop started to change too. You know, in the 2000s, I can say the 2010s, you know, because you went from we went all the way down. And so it's the 90s to the 2000s. Now we going from the 2000s on up. So hip hop started to change. It changed really into alternative hip hop now. Now you were hearing sounds and stuff that were never ever done before. Hip hop was really mixing genres at this time, like jazz, punk, indie rock, stuff like that. Electronic, stuff like that. During this time, prominent rappers started to emerge too, like Outkast, Kanye West, MF Doom, 2 Chainz, Gucci Mane, Juicy J, The Roots, Kid Cudi. And they started to change the way music was and the way that, you know, music was approached. So at that time that they did that, they started really accepting more hip hop artists in more different places. You know what I mean? Like now hip hop artists do different type of rhyme, do different type of fest. Some artists have their own fest. Now you got artists, hip hop artists doing Coachella. They're doing a lot of different things with the hip hop. And it's crazy that hip hop has only been around since the 70s. Since the 70s, I think it's like between 72 and 76, hip hop was developing really fast. And for it to be around that little bit of time, it made a big impact. A lot of kids listen to rap, a lot of kids, a lot of genres, a lot of different people listen to hip hop. And what's crazy, if you look at the statistics, the most people that listen to hip hop, the demographic are females and white teens. That's the people that mostly listen to hip hop, and that's what's crazy. That's probably what brought it really up there over the boundaries of being held back. And now at this day and time, you have what I like to call is like contemporary. What I call what I call contemporary hip hop. You know, it's modern day. It's streaming services now. Everything is the turn of the century made a lot of things different. It created an explosion of artists and mixtapes and experimentation that no one, of course, never seen again. It makes you think, what would the next 10 years bring for hip hop? Because I can say in the last 5 years, you've had different genres. You've had the mumble rap, you've had the drill, you have the UK hip hop. I like the UK hip hop too. They be rocking. Artists like Dave and Bruno and everybody else, they really rock off in hip hop. But with that being said, just to understand the history, just to go back a little bit, just to understand the history of hip hop. Hip hop was born in poverty. Hip hop was born in social, economic deprivation in places where during a time in New York where buildings, they used to set buildings on fire, like whole apartment buildings. And whole apartment buildings. And for that to be done like that, and something came out of that, something came out of nothing. And that was hip hop. That was hip hop. They called it hip hop because when they dropped the beats and they did the break beats and stuff like that, you had to bounce. You had to bounce. It was like you was hopping. And most people start dancing from their hips. So hip hop actually came from that. Now people distinguish hip hop, they break it down into different characteristics of music. Number one, the first characteristic of it was you had a strong rhythmic beat, okay? A rhythmic beat is the strongest unifying factor of hip hop music. You know, it can be fast, it can be aggressive, it can be slow or relaxed, but it carries the song steadily. That's what you needed, okay? Then the next thing was your vocals. You need your vocals, okay? All the majority of hip hop songs incorporate rapping in their main vocal style. You know, most of the hip hop songs you hear now, you get on the hook, most of the people are singing. You have a lot of people trying to sing now on this hip hop stuff. Okay, so you had your strong rhythm beat, you have your vocals, and then you had the breaks. Okay, the breaks is the term for long percussive periods, you know, like a break in the song. And DJ Kool Herc, he's credited with the creation of the breaks. The breaks actually encouraged dancing. When they heard the break, they knew they could really stop listening to the songs because there wouldn't be no more words at that moment. So they knew that they could really just dance now. And when the breaks was over, they could sing right back to that song. That's what the three fundamentals of hip hop was. And you had people that's around today, like Drake and Dr. Dre and Jay-Z, Kanye West, people like that. If you ask them how did they hear or what made them get into hip hop and things like that, they would definitely credit Afrika Bambaataa. You know, he's often considered one of the founders of hip hop music. but his music incorporated, he was a DJ in New York. His music incorporated many elements of electronic and boogie music. You know, his song, an old school song, Planet Rock. Like I said, in the next few classes and stuff like that, I'll let you hear some of the songs, you know, starting from the beginning, you know, a beginning song in the 70s to, hold on, from a beginning song in the 70s to a song now. I'll let you hear that so you can see the big difference and how far hip hop has came. Another aspect of music that we really get into now, that we can credit the beginning of hip hop with, was the beginning of hip hop used to incorporate a lot of reggae, you know, like old school reggae though, you know, not like today's reggae. The beginning, they got a lot of rhythm and blues, and it was a Caribbean feel to it, you know, Caribbean feel to it. So that's what usually started in its inception. But now you have many different subgenres. You definitely have trap. And I like all the genres, you know, but you have trap, you have crunk music, you have your drill. Drill music started in the UK, and then it made its way to Chicago and New York. Those are the three biggest places for drill music right now. And Japan. And Japan also has drill music too. That's crazy. And if you heard that music, you'd be like, the Asians be rocking though. The Asians be rocking. Yes. Yeah, Japan definitely has a big rap scene. Like I said, in the 70s, when rap was getting big, and when hip hop was getting big in New York, in America, the first places that they branched out with hip hop, where hip hop started to get big, other than in America, was overseas in the UK. Overseas in the UK, in Japan, and Australia. Those were the three places where rap was really big for a long time. Now, in hip hop, people can go overseas and make more money than they would make in the States. That's why people like to tour so much. Now, one big thing about the history of hip hop that I'm going to talk about is you know, the diversification of hip hop. And it didn't really diversify until the 80s, of course, like I said before. And it didn't really change until they start doing the drum kits. When they started to diversify in the early 80s, they started using drum kits. It started to move away from that as natural feel as you usually would had it when they first started in 1970, what was that? 72, not 72, excuse me, 76, 1976, when hip hop was just first starting in its conception. But back then, like I said, it wasn't really raps. It was just easy words. They wasn't stringing words together. That's why Rappers Delight had the hip hop, the hip it, the hip it, the hip hop. You don't stop rocking to the bang bang boogie, then up jump the boogie to the boogie, then the boogie you be. Now this shoe here is not like, it was all right. It sounded like candy rap to me, but it sounded like it was crazy, because you had people on the other side of New York and Staten Island that it was a story that you had DJ Kool Herc, you had the people from Rappers Delight, and Kool Herc and them, they did it a different way, but it was the same thing as Rappers Delight, but it was kind of harder. So when Rappers Delight came out, it was a feel that they stole that from DJ Kool Herc, who was really going to drop that song before Rapper's Delight was. And they hated it when it first came out, but it was a commercial success. Rapper's Delight was the first song to see commercial success that kicked off the hip hop scene. And then you had other songs that came along. Rapper's Delight actually got the first song to get attention from white executives, and they really wasn't messing with Black music. They didn't like anything that was coming out of the Bronx or nothing. You know what I mean? People would come all the way from Harlem or Staten Island or Queens and stuff to come to parties in the Bronx because the Bronx had a new sound. Excuse me, let me get some water. Thank you, sir. Thank you. But it was at the 70s, the Bronx. Yeah, so when the 80s came around and Rapper's Delight was pretty much almost out of there by the 80s. They had did their thing by the middle 80s, excuse me. They had did their thing and they, made their money and stuff like that. But you had people coming in there like around 84, like Run DMC and LL, they were mixing the genres. They mixed rock with a good string beat or with different lyrics that they had. And they started to mainstream hip hop by bringing, they started the mainstream hip hop by bringing big rock fans into hip hop. You know what I mean? That's what made hip hop and rock really mesh together in the middle 80s, because it was like Run DMC, LL Cool J. He had hits. And you had the movies that came out around that time, like Breaking 2, Crush Groove. LL was in that also. The big thing about those acts were they did have a Black guy, but Def Jam was started by a white guy and a Black guy. So Def Jam, before LL got involved with Def Jam and Run DMC and everybody, they and the Beastie Boys, they were, it was a white guy that had, and he loved doing rock. He loved doing rock. I'm trying to think, what's his name? Rick Rubin, I think. I think his name is Rick Rubin, and before him and Russell Simmons met up with each other to do Def Jam, I think that the Beastie Boys, LL Cool J, Run DMC, they were like the first people to really get signed to real deal record deals. People before that were not signed to record deals in the 80s. Record deals really weren't heard of in the 80s. In the 80s, they would have you come do an album, and that was it. If you wanted to do another album, you would come and do another album, but it was no contracts or anything. That's why a lot of people got messed up in the 80s. A lot of people didn't get the right money, didn't get paid right. They were the first 3 acts for real to really get signed down. Oh, we want you for 3 albums. We're going to pay you this, or we want you for this. We're going to do that. Oh man, I can get to the contracts and everything. That's a different time. But that's when it started to diversify. Okay, and like I said before, then you had the golden era. It was like all these eras, they were paving the way for new people. Because you probably had people just sitting on the couch looking at LL Cool J and just like, oh man, he a rock star. You're welcome. He was like, oh man, he a rock star. I want to be a rock star, or I want to do this, or, and once that starts spreading, and everybody really starts saying that they can make something of this subgenre or this new genre of music, then you had people come like Tupac, Biggie, MC Hammer, KRS-One. It was just a lot of people that changed the lifestyles of music. When Biggie came in, Biggie was not attractive. People didn't, he was not attractive, but he was a cool person. So people really loved Biggie. You know what I mean? He was not attractive. And what he saying in one of his songs, um, black and ugly as ever. You know what I mean? But I stay Gucci down to the socks. Rings and watch filled with rocks. He came with a different type of flow that ushered in other people like him, Busta Rhymes. People like that changed the game. In this history of hip hop, the game changed so much. You hear music change every day, but when you are really credited with starting a genre or doing something different, right? When you start something, there's somebody else out there that wants to be the best at what you just started. So that's what happened with hip hop. There was so many people that saw what African Bambaataa was doing and DJ Kool Herc, and they just listened and they just sat down. That's where the Primos come from, and Knife Wonders, you know, the DJs, Just Blaze, you know, stuff like that. They come from those type of people. All the music that's getting sampled is from old school. Everything from today is from of old. And that's what makes hip hop great to me. I am a student of hip hop. I've loved hip hop since I can remember. I love music since I can remember. And the thing that really makes hip hop strong from the beginning is that it is ever changing. People changing hip hop so much. So now you got the era of what they call mumble rap, but I think it's going to make a full circle back around to, you know, the lyricists again. You still got your lyricists coming, but there's more lyricists coming back out. But mumble rap was good to me too. But the part that was good to me, I didn't like all the mumbling. But the thing that's good about mumble rap is that it really gave people, we would think they don't have no skill, but they have skill in something. Even if we felt like that the rapping wasn't all that good, they had some type of skill in something. But they gave people with, to me, no skill, to me, you know what I mean? But they probably had skill in marketing or doing something. It just wasn't the type of music I was feeling. But they changed it. They changed, they gave people extra chances. So now you had everybody coming in when mumble rap started. You had everybody coming in because all they had to do was make a couple sounds and you got $1 million. You know what I mean? It wasn't, at this time in the game, it's not a lot of people staying in the game. You know, at this time, people come and people go. They're not there to maintain longevity. You know, like the old school, you know, like Big Daddy Kane and people like that. People gonna love them forever. They came in the game and they killed it. At this time of this emergence in the 1990s, you had a whole bunch of different parts of America getting on now. So now you have the West Coast. Now you have the South getting a piece. And the South took it over for a minute. The South, you know, they handled a lot of things for a minute. They took it over for a minute. New York was starting to not be considered the mecca of hip hop anymore because now everybody was involved. What's up, man? Okay, but everybody was involved in it. Here, get your cup. I think that might be about it for the first session. All right. Yeah, I think I might close it out there for the first session. Do have another meeting after this, but I'm closing it out there for the first session just to give you a little, synopsis of the history and how everything started with hip hop. I wanted to be really. What are you doing? You all right? All right. Okay. I wanted to be real informative because it's a lot of information that I have up in here, and I want to thank you very much. And I have a lot of information I'm going to share with you guys throughout this workshop process. We're going to break down lyrics. We're going to break down slang, because the slang has definitely changed from when hip hop came to now. We're going to break down different meanings. We're going to break down what a double entendre means. Just the end, we're going to get into the mission of hip hop. What's the mission, and where you guys really think it's going to go from this point. So with that being said, do we have any questions from anybody? All right. I definitely want to thank everybody for coming, and keep coming every other Tuesday. It's gonna be every other Thursday. It's gonna be every other Thursday, or every second Thursday every month. And we're gonna dive in. We're just gonna keep on getting it better. And I'm definitely gonna show you guys different things. This session was more informative, going into the deeper sessions and the deeper knowledge of it. I definitely have different interactions and things like that. But with that being said, everybody have a great night. Thank you very much, and everybody keep rocking with me. We're gonna make this big. Y'all have a great one.
Awesome. Everybody in the chat, can you just give it up for a quick second? Use your reactions, use your emojis, all that stuff. Let's give it up for War and Peace for an amazing first session.
Thank you.
I have been loving being on all of these workshop calls. Y'all you're really making the dream happen. So much information. You will be able to find this on YouTube and on our website if you want to follow it up. So especially if you know someone who loves hip hop, who loves rap, please tell them about this. We will be back here same time, same place, same link for this. And we have a whole rap shed that will be hopefully starting events soon, like smaller scale events, hoping with lyricism, ciphers, different things like that. So this is going to keep going, and it's going to keep growing. We're so grateful. We're so grateful to Warren, who's our artist relationship manager, for all his help with this. If you want to learn more about Tony A Artistry, please go visit us at www.tonyaartistry.com. Please, please, please take the survey that we have put in the chat. It helps us to continue to provide great opportunities, workshops, events like this for our community. And we have had a wonderful time, and we look forward to seeing you all next time. Please remember our Artist Shed, the Unplugged Edition, is happening on March 25th at Capitol Lounge. Hear all your acoustic covers, original music. It's going to be such a vibe. It's going to be amazing. We hope to see you all there. You can go to our website